aspect. All right, yeah, still going through the new vision to see what's really making headlines in there. Okay, I've come now to the top headline that was there of the government offering teachers, of course, degree scholarships, and of course, still, if I review of this particular report, it says that with 7 years left for all teachers to be required to have obtained at least a bachelor's degree in education, the government has offered about 8,000, that's 8,096 scholarships to them to upgrade. So it's going to be necessary for a teacher years to come to ensure that for you to qualify to teach into any class, you have the qualifications. You have a bachelor's degree. That's what I meant by the qualifications. So because before we had teachers that could actually teach diploma level, most especially those that are pursuing that early childhood development, or what I can call nursery teaching, that it's now going to be upgraded. That's away from the diploma status to be in position to, of course, teach the students. All right. I see the United States of America pledges more support for Ebola. Yes, that's still in the new vision right there. Natalie Brown, the U.S. ambassador in Uganda, has pledged her government's continued support in the fight against the Ebola virus disease. So that's very good news coming the way of Uganda. This is support coming from the United States of America to avert the possible effects of Ebola. All right, and I'm done with the new vision. Now let me head straight to the Daily Monitor. I'm out of time, actually. But let's just review something a little small in the Daily Monitor. I see as homeowners turn empty rooms into money makers. This is something so remarkable. Homeowners, that's in Chiranga County, whose children have left the nest, are turning the empty rooms into money-making ventures as they capitalize on a shift in travelers' accommodation and preferences. Something very interesting in there. Now, for the interest of time, it's exactly 42 minutes past the hour of 7 a.m. And this particular moment, we head straight to the international news and see what's making headlines across the borders. And let's get straight to that. All right, now we're back to the international news, and of course we start with Asia's factories as they are hit by the global slowdown, and of course looking at China's COVID caps. Asia's factory output weakened in October as global recession fears and China's zero COVID-19 policy have hurt demand, according to the business surveys, adding to persistent supply disruptions and darkening recovery prospects. All right, further interest rate hikes in the United States are also expected to force most Asian central banks, of course, to prevent sharp capital outflows by tightening their monetary policies, even if it means cooling already soft economies. That's according to what analysts are reviewing in this regard. Okay, manufacturing activity shrunk. That's in South Korea, Taiwan, and Malaysia. That was in October, and expanded to the slowest pace in 21 months. That's in Japan. The surveys showed on Tuesday, highlighting the pain from the slowing Chinese demand and stubbornly high import costs. So you can see what's really happening right there in Asia regarding that report. And of course, Chinese Caixin and S&P Global Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index stood at that's 49.2 in October, up from 48.1, that's in September, but remains below that 50-point mark, and of course that separates growth from the contraction. All right, the private sector survey was in line with official PMI. Of course, a survey released on Monday that showed China's factory that activity unexpectedly fell in the month of October, the month which just hit. Okay, Asia is extremely reliant on China, and of course its zero COVID policy continues to disrupt supply chains and keep Chinese travelers from returning to Asia, of course, to Asian tourist destinations. It's also hurting the region's export, that say Toru, That's Nisha Hama, chief economist at the Daiichi Life Research Institute in Tokyo. Yes, that's what is really happening right there. Another risk that's in the pace of the U.S. rate increases. And of course, there is a saying that if the Federal Reserve continues to hike rates steadily, that could ignite capital that's outflows from Asia and hurt exports. So that is something also to consider. Of course, Japanese AU Jibun Bank, Japan Manufacturing, and of course, that's the PMI, fell to 50.7 in October from September's 50.8 final, and of course, marking the weakest growth since January. That was last year, 2021. And of course, South Korea's factory activity shrunk. That's for a fourth month in October as orders for exports fell. That's for an 8th month. Of course, that's according to what the PMI showed right there. And of course, that followed the data that showed South Korea's exports fell the most in 26 months, with shipments to China and of course its largest market extending the declines. So that's what is really happening right there in Asia. There is a decline in economic activity, and of course this has been largely attributed to the Chinese COVID-19 policy, or what they called the zero COVID policy. So literally, I'll say that China has been the backbone of Asia's growth and development of the manufacturing sector, and also being responsible for Asia's gross domestic product, and also playing a major role in determining income per capita in that particular region, since majority of the individuals leave these countries to come to China to work in those factories, and they get engaged in the different economic activities. So you can see that is something very remarkable. What should we expect next year for that particular region? All right, now away from China, we head to Britain, and this time around we are looking at the British Petroleum making massive profits, and of course this follows the recent hiking of the fuel prices. And of course, in a statement, the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, proposed to highly tax this particular company. It serves quite a wide range of regions in this world. Okay, let's review this report briefly. The oil giant made 8.2 billion US dollars. That's equivalent to 7.81 pounds for the period, more than double. Of course, more than double the profit over the same 3 months that was last year. Okay, of course, British Petroleum said it will pay 800 million US dollars in windfall tax this year, and of course a levy on profits made from extracting United Kingdom oil and gas. So now we are looking at a windfall of 800 million US dollars just on the United Kingdom. So you can see how big that prospect is. That's 800 million windfall taxes on extracting UK oil. So you can see that. Of course, oil farms' big profits are expected to lead to renewed calls to this windfall tax energy farms to be increased. The windfall tax was introduced by Rishi Sunak when he was Chancellor. And of course, at the time, Mr. Sunak said the levy, which they have called an energy profit levy, would raise that's $5 billion in its very first year of operation. Okay, Alok Sharma, UCO's co-president, tweeted, and of course, and he said that this statement, he said that we need to raise more money from windfall tax on oil and gas companies, and actively, of course, encourage them to invest in renewables. So that's a move right there, that they're encouraging investment in renewables right there. Okay, Treasury sources have indicated an extension to the windfall tax, and of course, it's also being discussed ahead of the autumn statement that's on 17th November, which will detail plans for tax raises, for tax raises and spending cuts as the government attempts to fill a black hole that's in public finances. So you can see what's really transpiring in there. And still further on this report, that could include looking at the public finances. That could include increase the rate oil and energy companies. Of course, the rate the oil and energy companies have to pay, and of course, an extraordinary profits, extending the time frame it applies for all, expanding it to include electricity generators. So you can see the strategies all right there. All big oil farms, including Total, and of course, looking at ExxonMobil have announced, of course, a bump of profits in the past week. So we're looking at Total, ExxonMobil, all these companies, of course, gas extraction companies, announcing bump of profits. And of course, definitely the British Petroleum is the master of making these profits in such a time when the fuel prices are on the rise globally. All right, still reviewing the report. Of course, like I say, Total and ExxonMobil have announced bump of profits. That's in the past week. Of course, overnight, oil giant Saudi Aramco said it had made a profit of 42.4 billion US dollars over just 3 months. Of course, and they're saying thanks to the higher commodity prices. That's according to Saudi Aramco. Okay, on Monday this very week, US President Joe Biden urged major oil firms who are bringing in big profits to stop war profiteering. War profiteering, that's what Joe Biden termed that as. And of course, threatening to hit them with higher taxes if they do not increase production, which would help to lower prices. So it's calling upon these farmers to increase the production of the oil so that we can have quite a lot on the world market. Definitely that will mean that the prices will decline at the end of the day. Okay, commenting on whether oil firms should pay more tax, Nick Butler, a former BP executive, of course, who is now visiting the professor at the King's College London, told the press that they have to balance what they pay in tax or what they invest in the future, and of course what they pay back to the shareholders. All right, now winding up the international news, let's come back to East Africa. Now we are looking at Kenya as Kenya moves to avert potential foreign direct investment crisis. Just a brief report here. Kenya is facing a foreign inflow crisis after the New York-based Morgan Stanley, that's Capital MCI Incorporation, put the country on the watch list of troubled markets unfit for foreign investments. Of course, Trade, Investment and Industry Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria told the East African media that the government would on Wednesday review measures meant to attract foreign direct investments that's within the country. And of course, separately, CS said on Twitter that he is under strict instructions from President, that's William Ruto, to look at the issues surrounding the free flow of foreign portfolio investments into Kenya. So you can see our neighbors in Kenya, of course, being spotted as potentials, as threats to foreign investments. Okay, and that's a crisis that the different stakeholders are trying to put hands together to ensure that it is averted and more direct foreign investment comes back into this country. Of course, this comes after MSCI, the American Global Finance Research and Investment Advisory firm, indicated that in its latest 2022 annual review of global investment markets that deteriorating macroeconomic conditions and unfavorable investment policies by the Kenyan government have rendered the country an attractive destination for foreign investments. Remember, Kenya's just, of course, returned from elections with a new president, and now we're seeing such, of course, experiences coming within the country. Of course, they say now the country is no longer an attractive nation for direct foreign investment. How will this go? Shall see regarding that. And it's exactly 53 minutes. That's past the hour of 7 a.m. And at this particular time, we're heading straight to the business tips and quotes, where we bring out that inspiration and we bring you the inspiring notes to ensure that you get to understand as you're pursuing your career or your business. And of course, all you need is success and ensure profitability, but the most important, impact. All right, let's get into the business tips and quotes. But firstly, let's review the business tip of the day. You need to be organized. It will help you complete tasks and stay on top of things to be done, and also looking at a good way to be organized. Of course, it's to create a to-do list each day. Yeah, you're asking yourself, how do I get organized? Create a to-do list every day. And now coming back to the business perspective is that's why we have what we call the business plan. You always have to plan out everything that you're doing. It's the best way that can really bring out that you're really organized regarding that. Things just don't happen anyhow. You need to have strategies. And one of the things about being organized is that you always put deadlines to your goals and targets. You don't just set goals, but there is a deadline to those goals and targets that you put out there because you intend them to be achieved at the end of the day. So it's important to put a time, and that comes when you're organized. All right, now let's wind this up with the business quote of the day. It's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important, of course, to heed lessons of failure. Yeah, many of us actually we hear success stories of the different people, and we really admire to be like them, which is okay. It's not bad, but remember, for them to be where they are currently, that you are able to admire them, there has been a failure behind that. So let's embrace failure as much as we celebrate success. Failure is just to help you get better and not repeat the same mistakes that you've done before. All right, that's it for this particular segment, and let's get into a short commercial break. We'll return with the coffee court. Good morning.